people may need to brace themselves for some smack talk about Canada.
Yeah, totally.
It's not easy to listen to, but it's one of these things that you cannot turn away from it because we have to understand it. Because until we understand exactly what he's doing, it's really hard to know what to say. So.
Hello and welcome back to the Citi-Zen-Ship show. My name is Clinton. Today we're going to be reacting to the State of the Union. I didn't watch this live. We're going to be looking at some CBC news coverage from the broadcast tonight. So let's jump right into that.
Well, that was 1 hour and 39 minutes. Donald Trump's address to a joint session of Congress. What happened there? Well, as we watch him leave, let's recap. Interestingly, he mentioned taking back the Panama Canal, getting Greenland, quote, one way or another. But here's the thing, there was no mention of the 51st state. That will be a bit of a relief for a lot of people, but no need to get complacent on that. There's no saying when that phrase might return again.
But I do think watching this now, which is essentially a victory lap here for the president, is probably going to be pretty frustrating for some Canadians watching along with us tonight, Adrian, because there is a lot, as you know, emotion, frustration, and anger about what the president has done today. And this is going to be annoying, to say the least, to see him take this victory lap and talk about things that run counter to what Canada wants and some of the Canadian values that the Prime Minister talked about earlier today. For instance, not aligning ourselves with Russia, given that Russia could very quickly also become a threat to Canada in the Arctic.
What you heard from Donald Trump was a firm and fast commitment to tariffs. He believes it is a way to build jobs in America, to rebuild the manufacturing sector, and he really touted how it's going to be something that can help, generate wealth in the United States. He did specifically mention Canada, as you say, 4 times during this speech. Have a listen when he spoke about Canada and Mexico and the current battle that exists right now.
Much has been said over the last 3 months about Mexico and Canada, but we have very large deficits with both of them. But even more importantly, they've allowed fentanyl to come into our country at levels never seen before, killing hundreds of thousands of our citizens and many very young, beautiful people, destroying families. Nobody's ever seen anything like it. They are, in effect, receiving subsidies of hundreds of billions of dollars. We pay subsidies to Canada and to Mexico of hundreds of billions of dollars, and the United States will not be doing that any longer. We're not going to do it any longer.
There is so much to break down in that. So first of all, he sort of refers back to the initial premise that Donald Trump has put out there about what he says these tariffs are about, talking about fentanyl at the border. But then he sort of shifts and talks about this exaggerated claim he says about trade deficits, which he describes as a subsidy, which of course it is not. Canada has a trade surplus with the United States because it sells more energy products into the United States than goods that are sold into Canada. But if you take those energy products out there, the United States actually has a trade surplus with Canada. But that again is not, despite a number of Canadian officials expressing that and explaining that to the Trump administration, it's not necessarily something that has changed Donald Trump's perspective on this situation. And throughout this speech, we've heard him say a number of things that are not factually correct, and that sort of fits in line with that. So Donald Trump really firmly sticking to his tariff plan, at least that's what it appeared to be in that speech tonight. His Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick had said earlier in the day perhaps that Donald Trump would be willing to meet with Canada and Mexico and sort of meet them in the middle, as he says, when it comes to the actual tariff rate. But Howard Lutnick had sort of suggested the last couple of days that the tariffs might not be as high as Donald Trump initially threatened, and then of course they were. So again, you've got one official saying one thing, but the president saying something else. At the end of the day, it's President Trump's decisions.
I want to shift things to the tariff conversation. This is the Prime Minister of Canada on Twitter. Today, the United States launched a trade war against Canada. their closest partner and ally, their closest friend. Canadians are reasonable, but we will not back down from a fight, not when our country is at stake. That is the first post. You followed up with, the moment U.S. tariffs came into effect this morning, so did the Canadian response. Canada will be implementing 25% tariffs against $155 billion of American products, starting with $30 billion worth of goods immediately and the remaining $125 billion in 21 days' time. Now, I also saw Andrew Coyne here. What he wants is to see a total collapse of the Canadian economy because that'll make it easier to annex us. We're actually going to listen to the clip on C-SPAN here.
It's an example of not really being able to see what it is that he wants, because even the excuse that he's giving for these Paris tariffs today of fentanyl is completely bogus, completely unjustified, completely false. So we actually have to fold back on the one thing he has said repeatedly, that what he wants is to see a total collapse of the Canadian economy.
There it is.
Because that'll make it easier to annex us, is the second half of his thought. Now, first of all, that's never going to happen. We will never be the 51st state. But yeah, he can do damage to the Canadian economy, and he's started this morning. But he is rapidly going to find out, as American families are going to find out, that's going to hurt people on both sides of the border. Americans will lose jobs. Americans will be paying more for...
Americans, man. Pick a random photo here. Who's this? Ah, it's W. Why not? We'll have W. Maximize this. Perfect. Random photo of George W. addressing the nation on the State of the Nation. Now, I'm sure at this time, during this time in history, Americans were divided. The election of Bush and Gore was one of the closest, if not the closest, in modern American history. But since then, and throughout my lifetime, Americans have become more hostile towards each other, at least politically speaking. The differences between the parties more extreme. And tonight, I'll be honest, this is the first time in years that I didn't watch the State of the Union. We took a look at some of the news clips, but I just couldn't bring myself to do it, man. And as much as I love politics, I knew it was kind of going to be nonsense, and from the clips that I saw, it kind of was a circus. And nothing that we didn't hear at the inauguration, nothing that we didn't hear during the campaign. This is kind of the same old song and dance. And unfortunately, the culture of the party that's out of power not participating carried forward. And we even had somebody ushered out for heckling.
Small business optimism saw its single largest one-month gain ever recorded, a 41-point jump.
Take your seat.
Always like heckling them.
Finding that members continue to engage in willful and concerted disruption of proper decorum, the chair now directs the Sergeant-at-Arms to restore order. Remove this gentleman from the chamber.
The idea that we are all in this together far outweighs the idea that you are on your own. And it's sad that the State of the Union just shows how divided America really is. I want to thank you guys for watching the Citi-Zen-Ship show. My name is Clinton. Like, subscribe if you like this kind of content, and share it with a friend. I appreciate you being here. As always, I'll see you in the next video.